My name is Katie Bergs, and I did my presentation on king corn. In king corn, two friends from Yale, Ian Chaney and Curtis Ellis, discovered that the carbon in their hair comes from corn, and realized their ignorance on food production in the U.S. They set out to Iowa to grow an acre of corn, and along the way, they interviewed farmers and townspeople from Green, Iowa, about the current state of corn and corn farming in the U.S. This is a map showing the 2016 corn production in the U.S. This is known as the Corn Belt, where the majority of the U.S. and world corn is produced. The red circle denotes Green, Iowa, where this documentary primarily takes place. Corn is the major agricultural product in the United States by far. Of the nearly 12.5 billion bushels of corn grown in the U.S. each year, approximately 4.5 billion goes to ethanol production, 4.5 billion to producing animal feed for livestock like cows and chickens, and 1 billion goes to making food products for humans. There are many benefits to the levels of corn production that we are currently enjoying. Corn produced by farmers is cheap, and since most of it is fed to livestock, the meat we get from livestock is cheaper for everyone. Ethanol is a major product of corn, exported around the world in increasingly abundant quantities for fuel. As far as food is concerned, and as Ian and Curtis discovered, much of the food and food products in the U.S. are derived from corn, at least in part. Corn is an important part of consumables such as alcohol, cornmeal, cornstarch, corn flour, corn syrup, and many other products. There are, however, many problems with the way we currently manage our corn farming. The government has had programs in place for several years that give farmers direct deposit subsidies, which essentially pays farmers to produce more corn, and in some cases to overproduce corn. Since the wide majority of U.S. used corn output goes to cattle feed, farmers are not inclined to produce anything but the lowest quality corn they can, which makes feed cheaper, and thus makes the beef derived from it cheaper. This presents two problems, however. Cheaper corn means cattle are being fed higher corn diets, which can result in a condition known as acidosis, which occurs when the cow's acid levels are too high. This can cause stomach ulcers and sometimes death. Another problem with the overproduction of cheap corn is that farmers are no longer able to support themselves fully, since the corn they produce is inedible to humans. Not only is the corn we produce inedible to humans, it has essentially no nutritional value. This results in higher than normal fat levels in the cows that eat it, making saturated fat levels in cattle stock skyrocket from about 1.3% to about 7% on average. In terms of scales, the issue of corn production range from local to international implications. Locally, farmers are having harder and harder times feeding themselves, since they produce most of their corn for livestock and ethanol. The government also gives them incentives for this in the form of subsidies per acre farmed. Nationally, the U.S. uses corn for a large amount of food products, so a dependency has resulted. If anything substantial were to happen to the food supply, the U.S. would have a large gap to fill for food production. Globally, though, the world does not necessarily rely on the corn crop for survival. Most of the corn used abroad is exported from the U.S. Additionally, the global consumption of ethanol in the world has increased exponentially in the past several years, from 300,000 barrels per day in 2002 to about 1.5 million barrels per day in 2015. In conclusion, the production of corn in the U.S. is an important part of the functioning of the country's food supply, both through direct consumption and through the consumption of corn by livestock. The world also relies upon the U.S. for corn production, both for food products as well as ethanol production. There are several reasons why the corn industry in America should change, but it is unclear what changes need to happen without crippling the system upon which corn is currently a foundation.